Okay, well, I'm going to get to something real awesome right off the bat, but I might as well intro the show for those who may be new to this. Welcome to the Run4Ben podcast that follows the Run4Ben documentary. The Run4Ben is a documentary and podcast about my dad, Ben Spitzer, who was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and myself, our relationship and the runs that I did for him and we did together, the marathons that we did, to be more clear. My name is Jamen. With me, as always, is the director of the Run4Ben documentary and good friend, Mike Piccirillo. How you doing, Mike?
I'm doing well. Excellent intro as always.
Thanks, man. But what I wanted to talk about, now that the intro is out of the way, is this doesn't have anything to do directly with what we're going to be talking about today, but I think it should be mentioned that one of our good friends of the podcast and the Run4Ben, Carrie Shaw, has been posting. I encourage anybody to go check her out on Instagram at Carrie Shaw, Keri. She has young onset Parkinson's disease, and she just posted about her Everesting not attempt because she finished it. So this, I don't know how many times that she's done this, but for those who may not know, Everesting is this event where they will go to a gigantic mountain and then they essentially ascend to the top of that mountain over and over and over 35 miles until they get essentially to the height of Everest. So they go to, ascending this over and over so that many times gets to the top of Everest. I don't know if I've explained that clearly, but they've done as much ascent as it would be to Everest on this mountain that they go over and over. Incredible, dude.
Wow, that's amazing. Wow. Yeah, we definitely Carrie's on our bucket list of guests to have. She is definitely a figure in the Run4Ben extended cinematic universe. So we definitely want to have her as a part of the show. She's inspirational and she's wonderful. And and she's in incredibly good shape. Like just I just am ashamed every time I look at her and realize how poorly in shape I am compared to her. But she's awesome, and she's a heavy advocate herself, and definitely inspiration to this Run4Ben podcast and documentary and all of it.
Yeah, I met her on Instagram. Still never met in person. That's dumb. Got to rectify that. But has been just probably the one of the main people who's in times when I have doubt or I'm not sure where to go or if what I'm doing. She encourages and has sent so much encouragement. I also had a hat that she made, the YOPD hat, which will be seen in somewhere in the documentary. I forget what year she made those, and I started wearing them, but I wear them for at least one or two marathons that had in a bunch of training runs. She also has a company called Kind Bombs. They're these little tokens that have these kind phrases on them, nice things, and you can pass them out to people. And I want to take them with our Phoenix team and pass them out to different people. They're just little words of encouragement that you can hold the little token, put it in your pocket, and they're really great to pass out at marathons or, any other life events.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie, and we need you on the podcast soon.
Yeah. Already, I thought about that today. I was like, I got to reach out to her, especially she just did the Everesting. Maybe she can, maybe she'll talk about that. So
Yeah.
we'll see. What do we got, Mike? Episode 6 today?
Yeah, this is episode 6, titled Drive, very appropriately entitled Drive. And this takes place on October 4th, 2020, which is a Sunday. And it is you're heading to a restaurant called Base Camp, is where we're going to be convening after your 12-mile run to do a Instagram live with your folks. So this is you basically driving out to Burbank, where the restaurant is located, and then you are going to do your run. And after said run, you'll have your Instagram live, and that all of that stuff, that Instagram live, that'll be in the next documentary coming out after this one. And that's, we are just with you in the car, hence Drive. And also thematically, we talk about what drives you and your relationship with your dad and all that encompasses.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this was something that you hadn't planned on doing this episode. You were actually prepping to do the base camp episode where we have the Instagram live with my parents before the marathon. But then you came across this, which is me driving out to that
Mhm.
event and decided that this should be included in its own episode. Is that right?
That's right. Actually, this whole episode, minus montage and cutaways, is from one clip. So Jamin recorded a 20, I think it's 27-minute clip off of his phone, basically en route to Burbank. And I saw this clip and I was like, there's a lot here. And based on what we are doing, as far as episode lengths go, this would make, I want so much of this to be in the episode. I can't do the drive up and all of the base camp stuff and keep it at a respectable running time. So the decision was to break it into pieces. So this is the first half of that day. And as I mentioned, the second half will be coming out next week because there was just so much covered that we haven't really covered. And it's very uh, conveniently kind of given to the audience just to really explain some backstory for yourself and your father and your relationship. And it's just some really great stuff. I didn't want to do the disservice of glossing over it. So the decision was to just take this clip and chop it up. And then we dove into your archives. You've been also archiving a lot of your old family photos and videos. So we were able to bring a little bit of that into the episode and just new stuff that people haven't seen, some stuff we've seen before, but we're restating it and just kind of explaining. So yeah, so that was kind of the impetus for the episode, was that it's literally, this is the root of the episode is off of one video clip.
Yeah. And it's as soon as you had mentioned doing this, said, "Hey, here's what I'm going to do." I found this clip. I knew exactly which one you were talking about because I remembered very vividly going out. That was I had just recently, if that was the fourth, my our move to San Pedro was right at the beginning of October. So I think this was literally the first weekend we were even in San Pedro. So this was the first time of me driving from San Pedro back out to Burbank, where, I was living in North Hollywood. So I was going back, closer to where we had just moved from. So that drive was, somewhere around a half an hour or something like that. And I remember just pulling out the phone, and I had a phone holder. That all just came to my mind as to, the marathon was coming closer, and all of that, why I'm doing this, why I moved to Los Angeles, why I found myself in Los Angeles driving out there. I don't know. I just remember kind of, hitting on all these things that I had been thinking of, and just was pouring them out. It felt very natural to talk about, you know, how this stuff got started, why I was in Los Angeles, the way I feel about making the documentary, which I think is one of the main reasons you kept this in was, some of the struggles that I had with doing this, and a little bit of history of, the history of me and my dad and Spitzer and Sons, and uh, that was really fun too. So I yeah, I appreciated that you kept this in because I do think it does give some context of some of the things that I'm thinking, and I think when I've said it before, when people are open and vulnerable, it can be scary sometimes to put that stuff out, stream of conscious kind of talking, and um, but I find that people relate to those things, and I'm, probably not alone, and it'll probably give a little bit of context to going forward why we're doing this.
As I'm making the documentary episodes, I always try to have for myself, for lack of a better word, a gimmick. And the gimmick on this was the challenge was, okay, take one clip and turn it into an episode. So that was kind of
Mhm.
something I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. We haven't done that yet. So it's always, just something to stretch me in a way creatively. And also, like I said, it was easy to do. I mean, it wasn't, it was a no brainer just by virtue of the word context and everything that it provided. Because you haven't talked about a lot of the stuff that you talk about in this episode. And I was fairly certain that it wasn't coming up again. So I was like, well, we got to take advantage of it. So that was, just really helpful. And then also just to bring in a few new photos and a few new pieces with your
Yeah, yeah,
dad and just some photos of you as a kid and
yeah,
playing with that stuff as well. And also, and I'm jumping a little bit ahead here, but we you discuss kind of like I get I feel like there's a little bit of you're feeling a bit of imposter syndrome
mm,
with doing the documentary, and whether you've or not, people will think it's self-serving for you, or if it's really actually helpful, or because you're a working actor and maybe you're actually you think people may think it's just for you, and you're kind of struggling with that, and ultimately you make the correct decision, which is no, I'm doing this for good reasons. So that was a really interesting thing that I don't think we've ever talked about.
yeah. That's probably the biggest thing that still get in my head, and it we were talking about Carrie at the start of this podcast. It's one of the thing. It's probably the biggest thing that Carrie has done for me is the support on being an advocate because she has young onset Parkinson's, and she reaches out and says, what you're doing, and keeping this advocacy going. And I've talked with her about some of those things, about some of those feelings of kind of the imposter syndrome and being a person that doesn't have Parkinson's, but my dad does. And how do I talk about it fairly without it being self-serving to the documentary and these type of things. So in that way, she's been very helpful to be, somebody who sees that good side of it, because there are times when I get, thinking, I think it's just that is just what happens. I've talked with some folks who, like, we're getting ready to raise some money for the Phoenix as I run this marathon this year in 2026. And what you have to do when you're raising money is you have to put yourself out there and say that you have a need that you want other people to help you out with. And in doing this documentary, there was conflicting things about, like, well, I came out to do comedy, haven't done that. It's the pandemic. Did we just do this because we wanted to be creative and not thinking about, what was actually going on? Now, fast forward to, 2023, um, and, and after my dad's passing, is like, I'm very secure as to what this has given me, and had I not done it, had I not put myself out there and dealt with those things, I would not have done so many of the things and made so many of the connections. And it was funny today, I was out on this 14-mile run, this training run, and I started writing. I was like, I'm going to do I'm gonna do a reel about negative self-talk because I have all these negative thoughts going in through my head as I'm running this 14 miles, and I just started speaking them into my phone to, like, then layer as a reel over some running videos to just be like, "Here's what runners, may are really thinking when they're out there running," or here are oftentimes you see people out running or doing things and it seems like, oh man, they're just, they're out doing it and whatever else. Um, and they love it or they like it. And, come to think here in my head, it's like I'm just mentally going through it. So, that stuff persists through all different parts of life. But this just happened to be a big stretch and a big, putting myself out there in a very big way and also asking my dad to put himself out there.
Absolutely. I mean, that has been an ongoing conversation through the years because yeah, it's really easy to feel like, does he really want to be put out there like that? Like it's as you talk about vulnerability, it's like you don't get much more vulnerable than that.
Yeah.
And also the amount of access and what he's willing to allow us to show, which was almost pretty much everything. Which as we go, will definitely you'll see like, wow, he's really allowing people to see because he also, I assume, was like, I know what the intent is with this footage, in one way or another, it's for advocacy for Parkinson's, and
Yeah.
I think that uh, superseded any ego he would have
Yeah.
regarding that.
And remember, like, later when we were you and I going through this archival stuff that, my dad passed along in these videos and these pictures, we found these videos where he's doing the advocacy himself. He was starting the website, which we talked about a couple episodes back. So that also helped give us clarity. But at the time, we didn't have all that. We didn't know he was doing all that. It was I knew some of it, but not all of it. And so to come back and see all those things as we go through this, it reassures me about that. And I will say this too, I had heard through, my mom that there were family members who had asked, like, about me filming different things with my dad, different things that were vulnerable or him not being able to speak well or being in the wheelchair or picking him up or these type of things, and they had feelings about those, and I heard about those, and that did solidify some of the worry that not everybody is going to agree with this, or I may not be able to get out to everybody and explain that my dad okayed this, that consistently went and talked with him about this. It's not interesting to have the just this bland thing that means nothing. There's no reason to tune in when we don't share that we honestly all feel these things. And we try to hide this other stuff and shine it up and just show these good parts when really it's those other parts that connect us. And that's something I learned through sobriety is that real self. People need to hear that and see that different places so that we don't feel so alone.
Right. And also, I think anybody who's watching along with the documentary, uh, you know, there is no evidence of Ben ever feeling under any duress or pressure or anything. In fact, he's also recorded his own video. Like the last episode, he recorded stuff for you on his own accord, and he talked about things that were, very directly related to his Parkinson's. So yeah, I think, I totally understand the perspective of family members feeling that way because they're also outside looking in. And they're, they have the best intentions for Ben, certainly. But one would hope, hopefully as they're watching this, if they haven't seen stuff already and are still not on board, that this would help them kind of find that. And also, as you said, we in episode one, He had the GuardiLuFun.com website that he started where he talks about having Parkinson's and wanting to still make people laugh, but also discuss what he was going through.
Yeah, and how to stay positive and how to like deal with that stuff. And he talked about a lot about Pope John Paul, who had Parkinson's as well, and that he continued to go out into public and to be present, even with his, showing different afflictions that he had, and what that meant to my dad to see him going out there and to go back to kind of really, my mom and I have talked about this a lot. I think there are really great advocates now for people, who are out there with social media, specifically who we've talked about, Carrie and Allie, being these people who are very honest and show a lot of the difficulties. I've been recently keeping up with Allie and some of the things that she's going through, and to have people that shine a light for other people. It's just such an incredible thing that people show up in their honesty and vulnerability, and it touches lives, that imperfection that we all have that we can try to hide away is really, again, what connects us. And to go to another part of this episode, the fourth grade talent show that I did is on that episode. So I throw the ping pong ball up and catch it on my nose. Um, that is what started Spitzer and Sons, that fourth grade talent show. I did my first ever uh, magic trick. And what that trick is, there's rubber cement on my nose that I put on my nose, and then one ball has rubber cement on it as well, and that all dries so you can juggle it just fine. So I'd throw the ball without the rubber cement and it would bounce off. But because of the rubber cement, they would both contact, and it would stick there. And so what I would do was you see me in there kind of going like this, balancing it, and then I take a bow, and of course I haven't taken it off, so they see that it's stuck to my stuck to my nose. It's a really good bit, it's super funny. And that's shown there that I did that, and I take a bow and then I walk off after that. That fourth grade talent show, after that, people started asking us about, hey, can Jamin do a show here, or can you do this Patterson Elementary Bazaar in Holly? And so he did some stuff for that, and then he joined in, and got, my brothers knew how to juggle, so he kind of wrote a bit for all of us. And then they would continue to ask us to do different things around town, and then he just made that into a business, eventually, where we started going everywhere. But that is the start of it right there.
The origin story.
The origin story, the fourth grade talent show.
That's amazing. And you were called Juggling Jamin, you said.
Yeah, dude, Juggling Jamin. I didn't
Was that
know
your choice, or was that bestowed upon you?
That's a great question. I think it was bestowed upon me.
Like someone started calling you and you just ran with it?
Yeah, I don't think I called myself Juggling Jamin. I think
I think you should be relieved that that wasn't your decision.
Oh no, but in elementary school, that there were kids who were like, "There's Juggling Jamin." Like,
Yeah.
I was just doing a talent show, right? Some kids
Right.
are singing, some kids are dancing, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. And my dad wrote these jokes, and I was a smash hit. It was probably what led me to being out in LA. Was like,
Sure.
whoa, this is great. I'm getting laughs,
Yeah, dopamine rush of applause. Yeah.
Yeah, dude. And not only the applause, but going through school, getting called the fifth graders, there's Juggling Jamin.
Yeah.
I wasn't yet in like middle school or high school where that may have been like, there's Juggling Jamin.
Right. Resulted in a wedgie or a swirly.
Yeah, I hit the pocket that at fourth grade. It was dope.
That's awesome.
So yeah, of course the third graders, second graders, and first graders, they were all looking up to Juggling Jamin.
Yeah.
So once it was said, I was like, "Yep, that's me." I'm so pumped about that.
Well, yeah, and in the episode, we see what the result of that is, because ultimately that you then discuss your falling in love with improv.
Yeah.
We see some of your improv footage and all that stuff, and it really is kind of very easy to see how that would propel you into comedy and then off to Los Angeles.
I was struggling with leaving because my dad had just been diagnosed, and I'm struggling with leaving and going away because I really didn't know how fast Parkinson's progressed or what, was I going to be in Los Angeles and lose him, or like I was just did not know. And he did not want me to stay back. He said, I want you to go out there. I want you to do that thing.
That's great. So back to the episode. So something that, the episode kind of ends abruptly in that, because you just were trying to figure out how to get to base camp in Burbank. But can you recall to the best of your ability, because this is basically we have a footage blackout from the point we end this episode to you being in Burbank. Do you recall any experiences that stood out to you as you kind of arrived and got going and all that stuff, since we'll never see that?
No, the reason it turned off is because I got turned around on roads on an exit or something and needed to pull up the map and concentrate a little bit more on how I get over to Burbank from where I was gotten off. Um, you know, uh, famous LA freeways and roads. So that's where it ended. It was basically me just locked in and getting to base camp from there. So nothing was really missed at all from that point on. I was so locked into talking about all of those things, and it was really uh, just coming out. It was really on front of mind at that point that I had really totally missed my exit because I was just talking about something that I kind of needed to talk about. That I wanted to make sure I was actually there on time and didn't, since I'd driven multiple exits, I think past where I was supposed to be at that point. Yeah, there's some the other stuff that really stood out to me in that episode. Is funny because the garage door opening right at the start, I thought that was broken, and then I wouldn't be able to get my car out for the drive, which is a funny place to start. I actually later, I don't know if it'll ever make it into anything, but it gets stuck in that garage just by myself, and the landlords have to come and like work on the doors. I'm a grown man stuck in my own garage. Um, but that was funny. There was like a pail in front of the door, so fortunately that didn't stop me from uh getting out there.
So wrapping up, um, any final thoughts on this episode for you?
Yeah, I'm just glad you included this because it was something that I remembered very vividly, but didn't, hadn't really remembered until you brought it up. But I was like, oh man, I remember that car ride. It meant a lot to me. So I'm glad that it resonated with you, and that I hope it does resonate with some people.
Again, if you're watching the series through, I think it's really great supplemental context for everything and what we're going to do. So it was fun, and it's also early on in our experience of recording things for this documentary. So you eventually do get away from that experience of just running the camera for a long time and dry. Like it's more straightforward and simple, and I think that's great because it shows our evolution
Yep.
of the creation of the documentary as well. So I think that's really fascinating to see. So yeah, I think it's really great, and it was fun to do. And the next episode, yet to be titled, will cover that base camp day and the 12-mile run and the Instagram live, and then we have a little interview time with you on that as well. And then we are kind of on the track heading to that first Detroit Free Press Marathon in 2020, which is a distant marathon in Los Angeles. So that will be a big episode coming up. Yeah. And I think that wraps it up for the day. So please like and subscribe. You can always find out more about us on our socials. You can also go to our website, Run4Ben, run the number 4Ben, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.